Hey guys, welcome back. This video is going to be on the Cub Lo-boy 154. Been putting things back together, but mainly this entire week. I don't know if you saw my shirt, I'm completely filthy, but most of this week has been standing in front of this bench grinder, cleaning parts and prepping parts for reassembling. Got my engine kit. I'll post the details, the cost of all this stuff and where I got it. But I kind of, for my engine rebuild, I got parts from different places. So I got this. This was an entire gasket kit. It's got everything you need to put one of these engines back together. One thing I was worried about was the O-rings for the hydraulic pump. It's even got those. There's part of it. Cleaned up, ready to go back together. That's the oil pump. Here's the engine. And what I did was I put all these pieces together to paint it. The last engine I did, I painted it last, and I didn't like the look of all the gaskets being painted and stuff. It's just personal preference. Tons of time cleaning bolts in the wire wheel, cleaning parts. Now I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just go buy new bolts? Well, I don't know if you can see that or not, but new bolts will not have the IH logo cast in the head. I got a lot of parts cleaning to do. This intake exhaust, I've got some high temperature paint it's like silver that we'll probably just do this whole thing except for this. I've seen some of these, sometimes people just paint this whole thing black, sometimes they paint the whole thing silver, sometimes they just paint the whole thing yellow, and I don't want to do that. I want to do this in silver, and where this is yellow, I want to do yellow, just so it has some contrast. I don't know what it was originally. I don't know how they were painted, but we definitely will use the high temp on the exhaust and make it silver. I think that'll look good. And this being intake, it doesn't really get hot. We'll just use regular engine paint and make it yellow like the rest of the tractor. I wanted to show this too. This is a very common topic you see come up on these, and that's the shear pins that go in these where it bolts to. This is where it bolts to the engine, to the flywheel, and you got one back there where the clutch bolts to the transmission. A lot of times you hear people complaining about this is a terrible design, it was cheap, and just to have that 5/16 bolt in there. Well, if you notice, you see how this is split? This is essentially a clamp. That 5/16 bolt is designed to squeeze this onto that shaft. And if that grade 8 5/16 bolt is properly torqued and this is squeezed onto that shaft, it should not get any shearing forces on that bolt. That bolt is not meant to keep this from spinning. The wheels and tires, if you noticed, I've got mismatched tires back here. I think that's an 8.3 and that's a 9.5 over there. I like the 9.5s better, but this is what would have came on it originally. I'll do these last. I'm going to get the engine back in this thing, make sure it runs before I spend money for tires. I don't foresee any issue with why it wouldn't run, but it's just my process. So we'll make sure it runs. If it runs good, we'll get new tires. these projects like this sitting around, just been dragging your feet on, getting started, get it out. Get start working on it. Even if she's just cleaning the junk off of it, start start, start planning your rebuild on it. I'm going to be using the Cub Lo-boy. There's a manual I found online from when these things were originally made that talk about the maintenance. And I'm not talking maintenance like checking the air filter. I'm talking disassembly of this engine, reassembly, the valves, how to set the the thrust bearings, everything, the torque specs. It's all in there, and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to be following. So if you're kind of curious about some of the processes I'm using, that's where they're coming from. Now, for an assembly lube, and this is take this from pro engine builders. If you're going to build the engine and run it a relatively short amount of time, then they say you choose engine oil. If it's something you're going to build it, you're going to set it to the side while you're working on something else, getting the rest of the car ready or whatever, then use an assembly lube. This is going to be assembled and started fairly quickly. We'll prime everything too. This one's a little bit trickier to prime because you don't just have like a drive shaft tool you can use. We've got an access hole to prime the pump, and then we'll probably just spin it without the spark plugs to get everything welded up and stuff. But this is a kind of a mixture that I've made. It's like it's a mix of a 1540 motor oil with a dab of like that STP stuff in it. And so it just kind of makes the oil sticky and kind of cleany. So, and this is just for the assembly process. And after we get this thing broke in, we'll change it out. So I got pretty lucky with this crankshaft because it had virtually, spec-wise, it came out perfect within spec. The other one is, it's borderline. These are, as you see here, these bolts pass all the way through. So make sure on your flywheel bolts that you use sealant, otherwise they'll leak. Let's get these bolts cleaned up, threads chased here. Also show you how to line all this up. Put the camera off and I went to move it. Didn't restart it, so I apologize for that. But essentially what happens is I just put the crankshaft in. Now this one's kind of unique because you got two different gears that you got to line up. So see here we got a single dot and a single dot. Over here we got double dots and double dots. Now I thought it was going to be pretty difficult to kind of line both of those up simultaneously and get that dropped in, but it was actually quite easy. Went in perfectly fine on the first time. So the main caps, and you can see they're conveniently labeled, so you don't have to worry about it if you get them mixed up and they're sitting on the bench. International Harvester was nice and labeled those. The pistons, that's the same way. I figured out via that manual. That basically was done by the factory. Shut off again, but essentially started putting the um, main caps on here. And something I pointed out was kind of my procedure. Each time I add something, I'm checking to make sure that we still move freely. So started here, here. This is the thrust bearing. There's a procedure that we'll have to do to make sure that we have the thrust bearing aligned properly before we torque that one down. But I'll do the same thing with the rods. When we add them, we'll add one, make sure we still spin freely. Each step along the way, we're going to make sure that we still spin freely. I've been plagued by cameras today, so not sure how much I missed out from the other one, but here's where we're at. We've got crankshafts back in, got the main caps. I worked those incrementally up to the 55 foot-pounds that they're supposed to be. There's a seal inside here. I didn't even realize was there until I got my rebuild kit. It's a pretty real thick. It's very difficult to get in. It's really difficult to get the old one out. But I ended up using this old piston to actually, just the perfect size to drive that in. So that's all done. We're going to flip this over now and we'll put the pistons in. So when we go to do these pistons, it's pretty nice because from the factory, we got the front is marked, the piston number is marked number 1. It's also marked on the rod, so it's kind of hard to mess this one up. You can't, as long as you line those up, point that to the front, have this in the number 1 cylinder, you're good. I'm fortunate because these spec'd out perfectly fine. All my parts were within spec from the manual. So these are the new rings. If I mentioned it yet, but so the bearings, pistons, I know I mentioned this, came from Hamilton Bob's. When I originally placed my order, I got a call shortly after, and they asked me, "Are you working on 2 different tractors?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "Well, the bearings that you got are from the old Farmall Cub, and the other bearings that you got are for Cub Lo-boy." So apparently there's a difference. They called me and asked me if I'm working on 2 different trucks. And no, it's like, well, you got something wrong. To my defense, I got everything from the Hamilton Bob website under the 154 category. But anyway, I thought it was amazing that before they sent this to me, they reviewed that and they caught that and reached out to me to make sure that I hadn't made a mistake or something. And so their website's a little bit quirky, but this is the second time I've ordered from them, and really impressed with the customer service and shipping. I think shipping is probably one of the biggest things. So many sites now, they have shippings kind of like automatically figured, and it's like ridiculous. They way overcharge. They're like making money off of shipping. Hamilton Bob's, this was $6 to ship this box. This right here is what it came in, and that's fair. That's a fair price. That's probably actually what that cost. Maybe it came USPS ground. Let's show the postage cost on here. No. But I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't cost a little bit more than $6 to ship. But But anyway, a lot of the parts websites now, it's just flat rate. They don't do it based on the weight of what you're actually buying. They just, you know, and I quit buying from a lot of sites I used to use because they were just kind of ripping you off on shipping. Hamilton Bob's and Super Scout Specialist is another one I like to get parts from because they charge, like when you place an order with them, it doesn't even have shipping on it because they're gonna, once they get it all packaged up, they'll calculate actual shipping and charge you for it at that time, and that's awesome. So those are kind of my two go-to places. Okay, I'm just gonna offset those. This is a newer style oil ring. This is the original oil ring. It's almost like a piston ring with slots in it, basically. Cool. Another thing Hamilton Bob's did was they put this in for installation. Shows your top grooves, the thick silver, second grooves, the black oil ring. So I don't even have to sit here and try and determine which one of these is which. I do want to look and make sure. Yeah, this is marked top. So that's important. Usually you can tell just by the beveled edge which is the top. Same here. Let's see. Yep, top. So these are marked. So this one. So put that on. Okay, so there we go. We'll do that 3 more times. We'll get our rod bearings in and put this in. Rod bearings. Just kind of these individual sets placed into one bag. So I kind of like it, you know, like this came in a Ziploc bag. Great value Ziploc bags, what I use in the house. Kind of just has a small business kind of feel. And like I said, a really good customer service from my experience so far. Not paid to say that. I paid for these parts. I'm just making sure those tangs go in right. This really isn't the greatest hammer for doing this, but it is rubber handled, so works all right. Kind of picking up here on the final process. installing the pistons. I've already done all the others. But I was just going to show you this last one just in case you wanted to see it. This is kind of nice because being a 4-cylinder and I'm being spread out, it's actually easy to come in here and put these rod bolts in after you've got everything in place. A lot of times you have to put the rods in with the bolts already in place, so you got to be careful. When you're putting them in, that those end of the bolt doesn't go into the journal on the crank and scar it up. And we're going to torque these to 16. Just doing them a little bit at a time. Once we get this all done, I'll do a wipe down of this oil pan and put another coat of paint on it. There's some spots where it's a little light. These two I'm leaving off for right now because they connect to the governor. This piece is it's keyed, so it'll only kind of go one way. It may kind of throw you off because when you get it on there, the writing is upside down, but that's correct. Back around on this, I think I prefer to have flat washers under these head bolts. I don't think it had them when I took it off, but each time I've ever done an engine, I've always put flat washers on the head bolts. You guys ever build an engine? What'd you do? Bringing these down until they make contact and torque them. So basically been torquing these in 10-pound increments up to the 20, 30, 40, and we'll do it one last time to get them at 45 pounds. Hey guys, so I really hoped in this episode that I would have the engine back in the Lo-boy, but I'm out of time, and for where I need to cut off to be able to get things edited and uploaded and ready by Friday, I gotta stop. Plus, it gets difficult for me when I start recording over multiple days and then sit down to edit it and put it together. It's not fun for me. So let me just kind of give one final run through of where we got to, and then just know we'll pick up where we stop here. We'll be on next Fridays. So. All right, so the engine's almost all together. I still gotta get new spark plugs. I just put these old ones in there for right now. Just keep crap out of the cylinders. I gotta adjust the valve still. And then I gotta get this, hung up on the crane so that I can take care of the back. I've got to clean this overspray off, get the oil pump in, the rear seal, and then distributor odds and ends, like I need a new belt, new filter. I'll get some spark plug wires, and probably just get one of those universal sets I can make myself so we don't have tons of excessive wire. And then we will work on getting it back into the tractor. Got my radiator in here. This yellow, I didn't do that. This is the radiator from the parts tractor. The parts tractor used to be lawn art. So the person that had it before, they had it sitting in their lawn, and they just periodically would come out and just spray paint the whole thing just to touch it up. So, and you know, they just sprayed everything. So I tried to get some of this off without damaging the fins, and I got a lot of it, but you can still see a yellow tint. Of course, when I painted this, I masked this off. I didn't get paint in there. But I think it'll be okay. Normally, I would not want the radiator fins painted, just so they cool better. But it'll be okay. I think we're ready. I'm excited. In the next episode, we'll definitely get this thing back in the tractor. Upload every Friday is the goal. Got sheet metal parts over there. Got to get cleaned up, paint stripped off of, and repainted. A little bit more there. Once we're done with this Lo-boy, we'll move on to this Cub Cadet. We'll do the same thing. Gonna rebuild on it. Get this Kohler engine out of there, rebuild it, get it all cleaned up. I did get the valves free on the hydrostatic drive, so that's cool. Appreciate everybody that's subscribed, watched. I really enjoyed the comments, so be sure to leave me a comment, and even just tell me where you're watching from, or tell me about when you had one of these, or someone in your family had one. Lots of people have stories out there. I love to hear them. So, all right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.